Hi, welcome to the coaching game. I'm Laurie Lawson, and my guest tonight is Lisa Rubenstein. Lisa, welcome. We have been talking about this for so long, and here you are. It's so exciting. Thank you for showing up, and you're going to share with us some great information. Lisa and I go way, way back. We're not going to tell you how long, but we were talking. I don't know what we were talking. I don't know why we were even on Zoom, and we went, God, this would make such a great show. So we decided, hey, let's do it. Let's do it. Lisa is an executive coach, to the envy of very many people, including myself. So Lisa, tell us tell us how you decided that executive coaching was going to be the way you were going to go.
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, Lori, thank you so much for having me on your
Oh,
show.
my
We've
pleasure.
talked about it for so long, and we're finally here. So
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. Okay. So my career began a long time ago, and my corporate career was more technical and running an IT consulting firm.
Mm,
And for a lot of various reasons, um, I left that. And as I left, the executives were still reaching out to me. And, I had built this rapport with them and really helping them to reach these aha moments and have some transformative experiences as leaders on how to be better leaders. And I didn't realize I was doing that. And so after a while, I was in between and taking some time off. And I had a number of people ask me if I was thinking about becoming a coach. I didn't even know it was a thing. So looked into coaches training and got certified. I chose a very difficult program. I chose IPEC, and I purposely chose a program that I thought was going to be difficult to challenge me because I had a consulting brain, which was telling people what to do, and needed a transition and learn to build a muscle to have a coaching brain, which is, as we do as coaches, ask powerful questions and be curious. Um, so started out as a baby coach. And I know, Laura, you and I have talked about starting out as a baby and progressing and becoming that toddler coach and teenage coach, and really just exploring all the different people came to me as a career coach,
mhm.
and that's not really who I am. So over time, um, I just kind of mastered my craft in putting myself in more difficult situations and working my way up on who I was coaching and mid-level managers to executives. And it felt right. And I just, people say your niche finds you. And somehow that's how I got to executive coaching. And I guess I'm now an adult coach. So, yeah.
Not a senior coach, not yet, but or maybe a senior in wisdom. Yeah. It's so funny because so many of us started out a totally different. And when you and I started, I think I started a little before you. It was like if you said you were a coach, they would go, "Yeah, what sport?" It's like and since I'm like 5'3", it was like, no, that's not it. I'm not a coach. Um, but suddenly somebody you go, oh my gosh, I've been doing that all along. And now it's a career. Who knew? Who knew? So exciting. But when and I did a lot of mentor coaching, as you know, when I was starting out and when I was mentoring, people would always go, God, I'd love to be an executive coach, but I can't. I don't know the language. I don't know how to work in that environment. But I know it pays good, but I can't. And so what made you say I can? Because so many of your cohorts and fellow grads and whatever just go, I can't do that. And what made you say, hey, I can do that?
That's a great question. Well, I think you said it, is that I didn't realize I was doing it. And the interesting part for me is I would say that was maybe 15% of what I did in my old career, but it was the most gratifying part of my old career, right? So now
Right.
I get to do that 100% of my career, which makes it doesn't feel like work. Um, you talked about coaching and people saying, I don't know the language. And I don't know about you, but something that I'm noticing is I have my friends say to me, oh, you're always talking coach speak.
Yeah,
And it's funny because if I say to somebody, okay, why don't we do this and then circle back? And so, I guess there's different terminology that I don't realize that we use that I guess is coach speak, right?
definitely, definitely. And you try, I know when we remember when we were starting and it was like, don't ask a closed-ended question. And I remember I had someone I was mentoring and she said, my kid said, Mom, whatever happened to yes and no? Can't we get to have yes and no questions? And it's like, no, not when you're starting, but it's all practice. It's all practice. But it's funny because I always used to remind people, I don't know how influential I was, it's like, executives are people too. Um, and I think they face special challenges because they are executives and they have to be so strong and everything. What do you find is the challenge with because these people are used to being in charge. They tell other people what to do. How do you approach that um, stratosphere, so to speak? That assumption that, oh, I know everything and I'll help you. But how do you approach that with your clients?
I'm thinking about as you're asking that because I want to say gently,
Yes.
but I'm not so sure it's gently. I think it's gentle in conversation. I think if they've come to coaching, they know that there's something there that can be better.
Mhm.
Maybe they're rough around the edges but I feel like we, excuse me, we have conversation and the conversation progresses where they notice that as coaches with our coach speak, what would it look like if you looked at it this way or asked a question like this? And I think that's when they recognize that's a gentle way that's how they recognize that, hey, I can up level this or smooth it out a bit. They are people too. And you and I have spoken before. When I really moved into this space, I feel like I had imposter syndrome, putting those executives up on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
And we coach that. And I think it's okay to have that because it lets you know what your gaps are and, where you need to grow. So for me, I did come to the table in that space thinking they were um, a whole different, breed of people. But then I realized that I was older than most of them, and that changed things a bit. Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm interested in your thoughts on that too.
Yeah, definitely. But first, for those of us who don't know, tell us a little. Yeah, feel free to have a sip of water if your throat's because mine is doing it too. For those of us who don't know what imposter syndrome is, explain that a little bit. What is that imposter syndrome? It sounds
Im-
contagious.
Sure. So imposter syndrome really is confidence.
Mm,
And it's understanding, well, it's that feeling of fear where fear and confidence meet,
mm,
that maybe you're in a role or you're moving into a role and, wait till they find out I don't know how to do this or I'm not qualified. And it really is powerful and it's scary for a lot of people. And I believe the statistics on that is 80 some odd percent of executives have that.
mm.
So I'm pretty sure that that number is right.
Wow.
And some people just know how to control it better or get those tools in place to quiet it down. And like I said, for me, that tool was recognizing that I'm older than a lot. I mean, I'm making myself sound old, but older than the executives that I coach. But I think imposter syndrome is healthy. And I think when people admit that they have it, it's opening up more opportunity to grow. Again, it shows you, excuse me, that gap.
Mhm.
of, you know that you don't know something. And
Um, I love that imposter syndrome is healthy because yeah, it's always it's fake it till you make it. I mean, we look at all those phrases we get out of that. Fake it till you make it. Have a good act as if that came from my background with drug rehab. I learned all the street talk, which was cool. um, and it was like, yeah, get out there and do it because you're right. Your mind just boggles you and goes, oh, I can't do this. And they'll know that what I did when I was 3 years old, I messed up in the sandbox, whatever. I mean, nobody's thinking about all that. It's like, you have something to offer and you have to get out there and do it, even though I think imposter syndrome, I'm surprised at the 80%. That's a lot.
I'm
But
gonna I'm gonna need to go back and check that. But
me too, but then I believe it. I believe it. I think we all go through that at some point. So my thought is that when I say executives are probably the people who need coaches most, it's because they do have to do that act as if, it's like I'm the boss and I'll run it through me, I'll get it straight and I'll keep you all safe and they don't have anybody to talk to. I was always I never did executivism, I don't think. I was always middle management and I was the buffer and it was like the employees would come and complain and then the management would come and complain and they had no one to talk to. And I always felt bad for them because, the employees can take it anywhere they want, but the management, it's like, no, they gotta remain um, trustworthy. I guess that's the word. They're trustworthy and reliable. And yeah, I'm gonna get you through this. So I'm thinking the world needs tons of executive coaches. But I'm thinking imposter syndrome may be stopping a lot of people from doing that. So good for you for doing it. How long have you been doing that?
coaching, executive coach.
Executive coach, yeah.
Ooh, so I've been coaching for 7 years, and
Okay.
I've been primarily in the executive space for 2 years. I want to go back to something on imposter syndrome if I can.
Sure.
Um, you know, the speed of business and, the embracing uncertainty and all of that, I think makes being an executive that much harder. So I think um when we're looking at how fast everything is moving and how people are working, and if they're in office, they're running with their laptop from meeting to meeting and all those, I think it's, slowing down. And for imposter syndrome, working with not just executives, but everybody to learn to take that breath in between and take that time to think about what it is that you're walking into. So, really summoning the confidence that you need if you're walking in a boardroom, that you're taking that 5 minutes to center yourself and collect what you need to bring it.
Yeah. Great advice. Is that what you tell your executives? It's like chill, take a break. Yeah, yeah.
Everybody really, but executives too. They're high stakes, high visibility, all these things that you were saying. They set the tone. So they need to think about it. So when things are going that fast, you don't get that chance to think about bringing what you need into what you're walking into.
It's amazing. I mean, and I have a calendar on the wall. I have a calendar on my phone. I have them, on my computer, and it's like, oh my God. Some days it's like I just don't want to look at my calendar. It's just too much, and I need to stop because I've lost sight of what I want to be doing here. And what I have to be doing, I know, but what I want to be doing, whole different game, whole different game. And I hope that's kind of what you're doing with the executives too. It's like, wait, give yourself a little break here. I'm interested because if you've been doing this for 7 years, what changes have you seen in executivism, so to speak? I remember when we started, and mine was, this is 20 years ago when I almost 20 when I graduated from coaching school. It was like, well, when you talk to executives, don't say I can help you because they don't want to know that they need help, you know. And it was like, oh, okay. So I don't know what you say. Hey, I got this cool program. Want to play? I don't know what you were supposed to say. What changes have you seen? Because coaching has become far more accepted now in the world of professional work. So, what changes have you seen in 7 years?
So I've been, primarily working with executives the past few years, right?
Mhm.
I think a lot of that's over COVID, right? So a lot of what we see, and as I mentioned, it's embracing uncertainty. What's happening. Companies are tightening their belts. I mean, that happens all the time. Um, uh, you know, Leading remote teams, it's not
Ah, yeah,
easy.
yeah,
Hybrid work environments.
yeah.
Uh, I like to call it leadership agility. So, I mean, my guess is, they've always needed to be agile and be able to think quickly and maneuver and change and be ready. And I, you know, I can't say that things have changed a whole lot, but in the past few years, I think those are the things that have really popped up the most. How do I trust that my teams are doing what they're supposed to be doing, working remotely?
Ah.
Leading global teams, I, those are the things that I've seen in the past few years. But again, I mean, it's just being agile. I don't know that that's been any different for years and years and years.
That is a cool word, agile. Because I think with COVID, it was like, okay, we sort of had it. We had the destruction of the 2008 financial collapse, and then we all sort of got back on our feet and said, okay, these are the rules. And then suddenly with COVID, the game book was closed, and the rules didn't mean anything. It was like we were all kind of dancing, it's like, oh, I don't know where to go from here. So agile is such a great word. Do you find do you find that most executives have fallen into line with that?
With being agile,
And adapting to all the crazy changes, or is this do you also coach resistance? It's like, no, but the way we always get this done is blah blah blah.
I think what I have found is those that are resistant to that degree are typically where they're working might not align with their values, right?
Interesting.
So, typically I find that those people would, I don't know, they might be coaching them out of where they are. It's hard to battle that much change, I think.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I love that you bring in values though, because that's interesting. And do you coach like um I know you coach company values, of course, but do how do you fit in individual values on that? Because that's got to be a part of being an executive, if your company is going this way and you kind of want to go this way, how do you do that?
That's tough because I have had a C-suite executive who just didn't really believe in the values on the board or on the C-suite along with him. And that's hard because his personal values were not in alignment with the other C-suite and, perhaps the direction that the company was going. So, that person left. And I think, when you're not in alignment, I think a lot of executives battle that, and that's a big internal struggle that I want to be successful here, but there's something inside that just doesn't feel right. And they might not know what it is. So that's some of the work that we do is really identifying those values and talking through and, um, bringing that to their awareness. And that's where those aha moments come.
That's interesting. I'm going to give you a statistic that still blows me away.
Okay.
I had someone on the show who was was she an executive? I guess she was a female executive coach, and she said that 80% of females who make it to the top, climb that ladder and get up there and do it, quit. because their values do not align. And I go, oh, that's ridiculous. And then I went, well, that's my story. It's like, and I'm sure it's probably your story. And so I'm going, yeah, that. What differences do you see? Do you see difference in age? Do you see difference in gender? What, and do you coach to that, or do you just say, hey, this is a team and we're all together here? How do you deal with all the of Gen Z? Everybody wants to talk about now. Oh, what a mess they are, you know. So how do you deal with all that?
So that, I love that question. So primarily gender. And,
Oh,
I think the statement that you made and the number that you gave might be accurate. I'm interested to look at that one too. But it is hard for women executives. It's how wonderful that we have more women executives and more women on boards. And it's a hard, I don't like the word balance. And anyone who works with me knows that I talk about a work-life integration. But it's no secret, that it is really tough for an executive woman to balance all the things that they need to balance. So we coach a lot on that. And I mean that's tough because uh really working with them to have the support system that they need to be successful and really knowing um identifying what are the factors that are going to help me to be successful and can I put them into place. And it's tough. So I see that by gender, but I also coach and see, I don't know if you and I talked about this, but the multi-generational leadership when you have boomers reporting to millennials and, things change quite a bit because the philosophies are very different. So I don't know if you saw the movie, The Internship, The Intern.
yes, yeah, with the
Robert
dinner.
De
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that I love that movie. But, these are real things that these are real things that are happening in the workplace, and these are all things that come into coaching. And not, sometimes it's the millennials needing coaching on how to coach the other generations that are there. And, anyway, but what are you saying in that regard?
Well, no, it's funny because you alluded to that. You said what got you out of imposter syndrome was kind of like, I mean, oh, wait, I'm older than all these people that I'm coaching. Yeah. Yeah, I see a great divide and getting greater actually.
Yeah.
And I think it's easy to blame and I sometimes I go, God, I sound like my grandparents or my mother, or something. Because it's easy to blame the younger generation. It's like, and I know people were talking about us when we were young. So it's an understanding. It's an I love you integration. You have such cool words. It's an integration. It's like, well, what can wisdom bring to youth and adventure and I don't want to say instability because that'll show my prejudice. It'll be not instability, but willing to change and not stay in the same job for 10 years and or get your pension or whatever, if there indeed there is such a thing. So I think and I think probably what you're doing is, yes, there are benefits to both sides. Can we bring this together and really explode this place and become the best place we can? My thought is, it's going to take a lot of deep breathing and a bit of understanding. It's like, okay, well, what can I learn? And that's the coaching thing too. What can I learn from this experience? And that's the beauty of coaching. It's like there are no failures. There aren't just what can you learn? It's an opportunity to learn. Someone said, fail, and they used an acronym for that. I just heard a first attempt in learning. It's like, yeah, okay, that's cool. Is that a good one? Yeah, I haven't heard that one before. So what challenges do you see in the future? What are you going, oh, you know what, I better get ready for this, or oh, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this because I see it's coming. What do you see coming up for executives in the future and those
Coming.
who work under them? Yeah.
So, what do you mean specifically?
I
So,
mean, okay, let's say the challenge was, I know in New York City, we're having a challenge now because everybody wants to work remote. And then we've got all these tall buildings with nothing, nobody in them because nobody wants to come to the office. So that's going to be a challenge. It's like, how are you going to, one, fill the buildings, of course, but two, it's like, how are you, like you said, with the remote learning? I don't think it's going away. I know it's not for me. It's like so what challenges do you see on the horizon, or what challenges are you dealing with now that maybe you wouldn't have dealt with 6 years ago or something?
And two things, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is AI and not
Oh
really
my gosh, yeah.
understanding. I
Oh,
mean, I don't. Last time I talked to you, I told you I tried it.
you're right.
Yeah, it's intimidating, but trying to learn and understand what role that is going to play. Um, and for executives to wonder how that's going to help or hinder their talent, right? And the other thing that I see is executives having to do more with less, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but I coach with a lot of big companies and they're tightening their belts and having several workforce reductions. And it's hard, it's tough. And we talked about this earlier. They're humans, and they're the ones that have to take the brunt of we're cutting 10%, or it's the third time we're doing that this year, or we're merging groups together and I need you to take on more responsibility. It's the perception, and they're messengers in a way, but it's so I think for coaching, I think that's a challenge that I see right now, is
yeah,
how to how to manage expectations, how to have those conversations that you're compassionate and understanding, but also your responsibility is managing the bottom line, right?
yeah.
So does does that make sense?
It does. And you know what? It's enlightening for me because I hear the other end. It's like, oh my God, we used to have a staff of 10 and now we have a staff of 7 and it's killing everybody. And you don't even think about, okay, this is going to affect the people who are making these decisions too. So thank you for
Right.
bringing that to the table, because it's like, yeah, it's easy to blame the boss. It's like, yeah, what are you doing cutting all these people? You know what? We've got 45 seconds. Do you believe that?
Oh
We
my
need
gosh,
another
that
show.
was
We need
quick.
another fast, fast. Thank you so much. This was as much fun as the conversation we had. Lisa, how can people find you if they're looking for you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, which is
Okay.
one good way, and the others on my website, which is ljrccgroup.com.
Okay.
Um, and it's actually in transition right now, but thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate
No, I think your insight is so it's so good, not only for executives, and that's why I wanted to do the show. I think you have a great insight for all of us. So thank you for being a great guest on the coaching game. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lori.